Good evening, friends. Amongst us, we have Dr. Vidya Salvini, an advocate, plus she teaches on various different platforms, including Beyond Law CLC. Today's topic is also quite fascinating. We have always been hearing about the she box, the digital gateway to justice against workplace sexual harassment. We all know that how this POSH Act came into being, what are the judicial journeys of the judgments, two important judgments on these aspects. But today we have kept a microscope of she-box, and we are thankful that Dr. Vidya has agreed. And I will request her to take over the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to all of you. Today, we'll begin our session with a small understanding of how many of us believe in today's era that a safe workplace is a basic human rights. So if we try to understand that, we all believe that the safe working place is our human rights. It is upholding our dignity. We want a very good workspace and many other things which I will go through today. But we all believe that it is the basic human rights which every individual should be having. But when we all tell that, yes, it is a requirement, still thousands of women silently endures every day the discomfort. They always have a fear and harassment which continues at their workplace for multiple reasons. But the simple reason is they do not know where to go and they are fearful of speaking on will they lose their job, or will people believe me, or will the entire blame come on me that I'm subjected to some form of harassment and in spite of that I'm talking. So these sort of confusion, doubts still remain in people's mind. So today our session is little to move forward from that fears. How do we overcome these fears with the initiative of Women and Child's tool? So just to introduce, we have an act called as Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. As the name itself is very explicit in nature, it tells how do we protect women from any form of sexual harassment at workplace. And they talk about three important mechanisms. How do you prevent this? How do you prohibit it? And how, in case if something happens, what are the redressal mechanisms which are available to protect them? Just one small introduction of this particular act. This particular act is divided into three important parts. The first part tries to explain to us what is the meaning of sexual harassment. Then it tries to tell who is an employer, who is an employee, and what is workspace. So that the definition, it tries to explain sexual harassment at workplace. These definitions it tries to explain. As the act tells, workplace means any place where we conduct our business or any place where I'm related to work. Now, they are not restraining our workspace to be only my office space or only the space which will confine me to my desk or my room. It goes beyond. So according to this particular act, workspace means it is a space where I'm doing my work. It can be irrespective of whether it is you're sitting in your table and chair or when you're going somewhere else. Again, they further classified workspace as it can be your own office where you're doing your work. Secondly, it can be any place if the employer is providing you with transportations. Like, for example, if they are providing us pick up and drop, the minute they pick up from your house, leave me to office, and they drop me back to my house back at night, then it amounts to workspace. Even the time of travel is also part of workspace. The third definition of workspace is like in case if I have to go travel outside the city on work and have to stay for 2-3 days on work, then the entire time of travel, my stay in that outstation also is part of workspace because I am there on work. So that is also part of workspace. The fourth definition of workspace is Now, it's all about work. But sometimes the organization also have recreational activities for its employees. Like they might have some celebrations, New Year parties, some get-togethers, some Christmas parties. Like there's different way of organizational. Each organization have different way of celebrations. So even those celebrations, if it is an organizational organized celebrations, then that also comes under workspace. Then the next definition is, now most of us do a lot of online meetings. We work from home, and there is nothing called as I go to office space, physical space. So the minute I log in from my laptop or whatever, I log into my work, where I'm sitting, that space becomes my workspace. It can be my study room, it can be my bedroom, it can be my kitchen, irrespective of where it is, that is considered as workspace. That's the next definition of workspace, because I'm there on work in that particular space. Then the next definition of workspace is, now most of us tell, because of time constraint, can we have a working lunch? Can we have a meeting over a cup of coffee, tea, and things like that? So we might go to some restaurant, or we might go to some eateries. So that particular restaurant, that particular eateries where we are conducting our meeting, and along with lunch or coffee, tea, which we're having, then that table, that restaurant becomes a workspace. That's why this act is specific and special in nature, because it is broad-based the definition of workspace. Why did I go to that eatery? Because I had a meeting there. We had a lunch meeting. That is why I went. I went there on work. So that's how the definition of workspace is defined under the Sexual Harassment Act. The second important definition which you have to understand is, who is an employee? See, normally we try to have bifurcations. Employee means I am a permanent employee, I am in probationary period, I am in contract and things like that. But according to this legislation act, employee is anyone coming into my organization. Now, they are not these names, permanent, contract, I'm on temporary basis, it to get confirmed. These are designations which are internally recognized. But for this legislation, it tells, irrespective of your identification of your designation, any person coming into my organization needs to be protected from any form of sexual harassment. That's the second important definition this act has given us. The third most important definition is, this act has defined what is sexual harassment. Earlier, we did not have a broad-based definition of sexual harassment. After 2013, the act has explained sexual harassment means into 5 broad categorization. It is told as a physical contact. Second one is verbal in nature. Third one is quid pro quo. Fourth one is anything related to pornography. And the fifth one is gesturely movements. Now, these 5 definitions, physical contact always means anyone trying to touch an other person, which the other person has felt inappropriate and uncomfortable, then that amounts to sexual harassment. So the important thing is, someone, because of your touch in any part of the body, but that touch made the person feel uncomfortable and made them uncomfortable and it was inappropriate in nature, then it amounts to sexual harassment. Then the second one is, if anyone is talking verbally and verbally abusing them with anything related to sexual contents or sexual remarks, then it amounts to sexual harassment. Then the third one is quid pro quo. The quid pro quo means it is something for something. It mostly happens in hierarchical charts. What it tries to tell is that, see, I'm your boss. So when you are working under me, I have a lot of power. When this power, I can give you leave without intimating. You can take leave. I can give you promotions. I can recommend for salary hikes and so many things. But in return, you give me sexual favor. This also happens. It's not that it's not happening in most of the places. So the third form of sexual harassment is quid pro quo. That's something for something. The fourth form is pornography, showing or taking Anything related to pornographic in nature amounts to sexual harassment. Now, this pornography also has one additional word, sexually explicit remarks. So it is like, it can be a remark, it can be a diagram, it can be a cartoon, it can be a drawing, it can be an illustration, whatever it is, but that particular thing is making the other person feel uncomfortable, then it amounts to pornography. And taking a person's photograph without their consent or without informing them, that also inappropriately amounts to pornography. The third one is showing any adult contents in an organization working space is completely not accepted, and it is also amounting to pornography. And fourth one is while you're taking some pictures, when the person is going to a washroom or something, then that also amounts to pornography in nature. So that's the fourth important definition of sexual harassment. The fifth one, the definition is anything with related to gesturely movements or any other actions which make the person feel uncomfortable. Now, these gesturely movements can be through your gestures of hands, your facial expressions, your eye movements, your lip movements, or your actions, which makes the other person feel uncomfortable. So that also amounts to sexual harassment. Like, for example, when someone is talking to us, I'm busy rotating my eyes, and that person is feeling very uncomfortable standing in front of me and talking. Or rather than seeing their face and talking, I just do scanning of the entire body of them. Then they feel very uncomfortable. Or I will rotate my lips and talk, which makes them. So we do not know what makes them feel uncomfortable, but gesturely actions also amounts to sexual harassment. So these are the main important aspects of the POSH Act, Sexual Harassment Act, which we have to know. Now, the second part of the Act is, the Act is very clearly told that every organization is supposed to have a anti-sexual harassment policy. Secondly, they should also have an internal complaint committee, now changed to internal committee. So this is mandated by the Act itself. So for whom is it applicable? The next question. So the Act tells any organization which has more than 10 employees should have a POSH, anti-sexual harassment policy, and should have an internal committee. This is mandatory. Now, what does this policy have? The policy have whatever the Act tells. It tries to define what is sexual harassment, what is a workspace, who's an employer, who's an employee. Then it tells they have an internal committee constituted with a chairperson, with members, and with one external member. And it should be displayed in prominent places of the organization where each and every employee knows there is an internal committee and these are the committee members. In case if something of sexual harassment nature or where they feel their dignity is getting affected, safety is a concern, they can write to this particular internal committee. That's what the second important part of your legislation tells. The third important part tells, so what happens? After internal committee, the internal committee gives recommendations to the management to act upon. The internal committee submits their inquiry report to the management. So, and within how many days the action needs to be taken. So this is what the legislation covers. I just took you through the legislation so that only then we can completely pitch in what is she box. So this, I hope you're clear. So now, what is this she box new? This she box is a online electronic box which is an initiative of Ministry of Women and Child, Government of India. So it's a digital platform which they have introduced in 2019. Subsequently, it had a lot of changes in 2021, then 2023, and now in 2026, they have come with new versions of AI tools and many other aspects of monitoring this particular digital platform. So the she box is an online, she box itself means it's a sexual harassment electronic box. So it is a digital platform. It's a internet-based platform which the ministry has initiated to tackle and implement the POSH Act. Now, this particular initiative is from their particular one of the scheme, which is called a Shakti. So this particular scheme tries to uphold the safety, security, and dignity, and also empower the women. That's what the scheme talks about. So this particular She Box, that particular mission, they have inserted into this particular Shakti scheme, and it is getting implemented. That is how they have introduced this particular She Box. Now, what is this? Why is it important that we should have a She Box? See, there are many reasons. Few reasons are, see what happens when any employee who is subjected to sexual harassment, when they want to go and give complaint, the first and important setback is we do not understand that if I am harassed, everyone are harassed. So they try to put it themselves into a bracket telling, why is it happening only to me? We do not even consider that this particular aspect of sexual harassment, everyone are also subjected to. So we always isolate ourselves and tell, why is it happening to me? The second one is fear of losing job. Third one is social stigma. And then we do not know that there is an internal committee, what this committee will do, how confidence. So lack of confidence in the internal committee. And then there also fear of weak implementations and various other doubts. So the other important aspect is, if I am a victim, if I'm going to raise a complaint, victim is further victimized. So when I'm going to raise a complaint, the immediate questions come to me is, why did you go there? What were you doing at that point of time in the organization? Why did you come on a Sunday to work? So they further ask the victim itself so many questions. So they feel that as if we have the person who is subjected to harassment has done some mistake. So there are a lot of other reasons as well why they do not raise a concern of sexual harassment. So due to this, what happened is that a lot of cases gets unreported. And many times the employee just resigns from the organization and goes away. Or they raise a concern, they don't see any action taken by the organization. So they just remain quiet, subjecting to this form of harassment on a continuous basis. And finally, they try to, leave the organization. There are also cases where the employees have committed suicide because they do not know how to face this, where to tell and how to even react on this. So there are multiple cases on that as well. So what does She Box do? She Box is as I told you, it's a centralized e-portal. So according to this, every organization, whether it is an organized, unorganized, some sector, semi, or whether it's educational institutions, government institutions, anyone, if they have 10 or more employees, need to register in She Box. Even if they have not registered, She Box can take action. It is basically, person can just raise a complaint in She Box portal telling that I am being subjected to sexual harassment and these things happen in a sequence. You can give a written complaint. When we tell written complaint here, it can be an email form of complaint or raising your complaint in She Box portal itself. It's a portal. And then after that, what happens? Once you raise your complaint, the tracking system happens, and then everything happens in a very confidential manner. Now, the next question which comes to our mind is, does it mean that Ministry of Women and Child will tackle my problem? It is not like that. She Box, as I told you, is an internal portal. So what happens? They will direct this particular complaint to the organization's internal committee, or they will direct, if the organization is not having an internal committee, they will direct this to the local committee. That is district local committees, government representatives, to look into this complaint and take action. So this is why She Box was introduced. It was introduced, I repeat, for looking into the complaints where people have not registered due to fear, or the second, without knowing how to go and raise a complaint, or where to go and raise a complaint. So in these instances, the person with no doubt, with utmost confidence, can go and register a complaint before SheBox. So that's the why SheBox was introduced. So the need for SheBox, the need is they can directly register a complaint before SheBox because it's a centralized complaint platform. Every complaint which gets registered gets a complaint number. And that complaint number becomes your tracking tool. So next time onwards, according to the Act, it tells within 90 days from the date of receipt of the complaint needs to be addressed and the internal committee needs to submit their reports. So what the SheBox tells is, once you raise a complaint, within 7 days after the receipt of the complaint, the SheBox raises the complaint to a concerned IC of the internal organization, or it will send to the local committee. So one important aspect is all the organizations should be registered to SheBox. So if your organization is not registered to SheBox, the complaint will directly be directed to the local district committee, district local committee to look into the complaint and take action. However, within 7 days, the initiation takes place and your complaint starts moving forward. Complaint registered and then action taken. The initial action for appointment of a committee starts from the 7th day onwards. The timelines are static, 90 days. That's no change whether you register SheBox or whether you go to IC. There is no change, but it's just an additional platform. And then it has auto forwarding. So it is not that IC where the SheBox, Ministry of Women and Child, has a committee. They will look into it and then they will filter the complaint. It is not like that. They will not filter anything what you raise. Everything as it is will be directed to the IC or the local district committee. And then it is having utmost transparent and accountability. Now, when we tell transparent, as I told you, once you register a complaint, you will get a complaint number. Along with it, you also will get a tracking number. So the complainant themselves can track the progress of the case. They need not ask anyone what happened to the complaint. So once you log into SheBox and put your complaint number or the registration number, immediately it will show the progress that it has moved from this particular place to the next. So it shows you the progress till the last progress that committee has been formed, investigation is on, they will call the witness, everything in one after one. The progress is shared with the complainant. And then the most other important thing is it encourages reporting so that women need not keep the difficulty within themselves. They need not be further harassed. They can come out of their mental agony. They can come out of the stress which they're facing. And with utmost confidence, they can report this particular complaint to SheBox. And then it helps as a bridge between law and implementation. Why this is one important reason is there are many organizations still who do not have an internal committee which has been constituted, and or they do not have a IC. Even IC is constituted, but they have not identified the members of the internal committee, nor they have displayed in the organization the members' names and their email IDs and phone number. So in these particular cases, when you do not know where to complain, you can complain directly to SheBox. SheBox gives you a tracking information of your complaints progress, and also it helps the company to move forward. When a complaint is raised from a higher level, each organization takes it seriously and start moving towards implementation aspects. And then it's a compliance tool. For the organization, every organization, as I told you in the beginning, should have a POSH policy and should have an internal committee, which it should be there according to the law. So this also acts as a compliance tool. So now the ministry is very particular that every year the organization is supposed to submit an annual report. And they are also supposed to submit an annual report of the each organization's update, particularly with this particular anti-sexual harassment policy and IC compliance to the SheBox. So it also acts as a compliance tool. And this is basically how the mandate of SheBox. Once they receive the complaint, they forward it to the internal committee or they forward it to the local committee. In case if the internal committee for the organization is not existing, then they will forward it to the local committee. Then they monitor progress. If a complaint is not been addressed even after 30 days, complaint has been raised, so the progress, their bar is not moving. If the SheBox bar is not moving with progress, then immediately they can write or they can call the organization or they can immediately let the local committee to walk into the organization and tell about there is a complaint and take action about this particular complaint. So that monitoring the progress happens very rigorously. And then it also ensures timely action. As I told, the complaint should be disposed of. Each complaint should be disposed of within 90 days from the date of receipt of written complaint. Now, if the complaint comes to the IC from that particular day, if the complaint go to the SheBox, then from the day SheBox has referred this complaint to the IC, then from that day onwards, we get 90 days to finish with the investigation and to submit the inquiry report. So this is the mandate of SheBox. And then is it having any legal sanctity and what is it covering? Yes, definitely. It is this particular concept of sexual harassment itself is covered under Article 14, 15, and 21 of the Constitution. 14 tells equal rights to equal person. 15 tells everyone have the right to choose their employment. Any one person can work anywhere. No one should be discriminated based on sex, caste, creed, place of work, place of birth. And so that's what your Article 15 tells. Article 21 tells upholds the life and liberty and livelihood. So these are the constitutional mandates. So the first and foremost thing, sexual harassment is a complete violation of our constitutional provisions. To make that more practical in subject, we have an act called as Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, Redressal Act. We also have rules which very clearly has highlighted that how the implementation of the act can take place at every state. Some states have come out with their rules, or there are also centralized rules which is implemented in the state. Then apart from this is also covered under your Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which is covered under specifically under Section 75, which talks about sexual harassment. Again, I defined the 5 types of sexual harassment in the beginning. The same 5 types are covered under Section 5 also of BNS. Then it talks about stalking. Any person following me or stalking me continuously, then it amounts to sexual harassment. Now, addition to stalking me physically, my movements, also online tracking, following me online on completely monitoring my online movements also amounts to stalking. And then voyeurism and insulting the modesty of the women. So all this is also part of your Sexual Harassment Act. Their Sexual Harassment Act is civil in nature. Now, BNS comes to a criminal action specifically for sexual harassment. Then when sexual harassment moves online, specifically it talks about WhatsApp, emails, deep fakes, virtual video calls. If anyone is harassed in this method, then that also amounts to sexual harassment. And this is specifically covered under Information Technology Act under Section 66B, 67 and 67A. It talks about obscene material, sending, receiving any obscene materials is an offense. Then sexually explicit contents when you're sharing or receiving is also an offense. And impersonation, cheating, like my identity I hide and then I create a fake identity. And in the fake identity, I start chatting with someone. I might be a very old person, but I will create an identity like as if I am only 20 years and I can chat with children or younger women or elderly women. But I'm completely hiding my identity, creating an identity and influencing the other person in any of these form of acts, sexual acts, chatting, cheating or anything, then it amounts to sexual harassment. So these are the legal framework which covers the aspect of sexual harassment of women at workplace and outside as well. Then, how this BNS, IT Act and POSH, what is the interconnect between them? I've just shown a small diagram to show and make you understand that this particular POSH Act completely is governed by, it's a civil remedy. And when we tell civil remedy, like any person is subjected to any form of harassment, they give a complaint to the internal committee. If you do not have internal committee, or if you're not confident in giving a complaint to the internal committee, you can register your complaint with SheBox. It's that electronic platform you can register. And then they will investigate your complaint, company will investigate your complaint. Basically, the IC will investigate, and then they will give a report to the management. But at the same time, you can also raise a criminal complaint. Under this provisions of law which I shared, this becomes a criminal complaint under BNS. And then in civil remedy, it's an internal process. The entire investigation is an internal process. But however, the Act tells when you're having your investigation on, the chairperson gets the power of a quasi-judicial body, where you have the right to summons or ask for production of documents or production of witnesses or anything which that particular chairperson can summons that particular person or any documents. That power the internal committee has. In the criminal system, it moves on to the trial process. And then in the civil remedy, they can only give recommendations to the management, which the management has to follow. But in the criminal system, that when if you go to a complaint through BNS or Information Technology Act, then it becomes an punishments. The way you have in most of the offenses, it is rigorous imprisonment. For many things, it's also imprisonment, which is more than 3 years imprisonment with fine. So these are the differences and interconnect. Now, the other important aspect is, see, it is not, the legal remedy does not stop any person to approach. Now, in case if some person is subjected to sexual harassment and they have given a complaint to the internal committee, it does not stop them that they are not supposed to give approach the legal systems. They can also give a police complaint on sexual harassment. The civil remedy, the internal committee inquiry process and the criminal process can go hand in hand. It can go parallel. Now, why SheBox matters is because, now, as I told you, SheBox was not a new concept. It was introduced in 2019, but many people were not aware of it. But over the period of time, it takes the power to bury the entire sexual harassment complaints. See, normally what happens is, for name's sake, many corporate or many companies create an anti-sexual harassment policy, and they also have an internal committee. But however, when a complaint is registered, this particular complaint is not dealt in utmost seriousness, or they do not take it in the due serious nature in which the complainant has been harassed, or they try to suppress it. Because if my company tells, oh, there are 3-4 sexual harassments in my company's environment, then what will happen to the image of the company? They will tell, oh, there are a lot of complaints against sexual harassment of my company. So they always think about their image, their reputations. So they suppress or they do not act on the complaints. So in this particular instances, when you register a complaint before SheBox, then it becomes a monitoring authority. You are registering a complaint before your internal committee, but government is monitoring the progress of the complaint. So that's why SheBox matter a lot. And then it is moving organizational policies. Basically, as I told you, many organization policing happens telling that what complaint you have given, it's okay, you nothing will happen, go work, or I will change your management, or you can leave your job and go. These are the immediate reactions which they give without even understanding the root cause of the problem or without proper investigation. But this particular SheBox helps in monitoring the organizational progress on a complaint in very seriously. And then it takes away corporate covers up. Many companies tells, I am zero, having zero sexual harassment, and many of them hide or suppress any form of sexual harassment. So this particular she box also takes away the corporate cover-ups and tells it is not to undermine or it is not to suppress any complaint. It is for the betterment of the employees. And then it empowers the invisible workforce. See, normally when we tell invisible workforce, we have unorganized sectors like domestic workers, we have garment workers, we have daily laborers, then we have all these Paurakarmikas and many others who are unorganized in nature, small vendors. So this particular, it also helps them also to register a complaint and take it. So it is also, it is to make the invisible workforce visible and to also help them from any form of sexual harassment. So that's also available. And then it is very easy. Once you register to SheBox, it's very easy. It will give you the progress. It will give you the tracking. It will give you who is been assigned as your internal committee member and how is it progressing. And then all this is kept in confidential nature. So it does not go into your gossiping in nature. No one comes to know that there is a complaint raised by you against X or Y. So everything happens in a very confidential nature. Though the Act also tells the entire posh proceeding should be confidential in nature, but sometimes it's very difficult to keep certain things confidential. So, but however, SheBox, it is even more better because it keeps every tracking, every case progress confidential. And then it is digital tracking. It is an app which you can install in your mobile or your laptops or your desktops. So you can track the progress of your case, your complaint by yourself without any third party's intervention or help. And it can be accessed national wide. So when we tell national wide, it is not restraining you that only your mobile you can access. They will give you a complaint number or a number for each complaint and a code. That code, if you put from anywhere, you can access. And then it normalizes criminal and civil processes actions together. As I told you, once you register a complaint before your internal committee, or if you register a complaint before SheBox, you need not restrict your taking it forward with criminal processes. You both can go hand in hand at complaint. So how SheBox works? SheBox, first when you raise a complaint, it goes to SheBox. The SheBox refer it to internal committee, and within 7 days of receipt of your complaint, they will refer the complaint to internal or local committee. Then the local committee, which has been constituted, if it is not there, the SheBox helps them to constitute. They also give you resource person to constitute the internal committee. If already there is an internal committee within your organization, then immediately after receiving the complaint, they set the motion of inquiry process by sending notices to the complainant, by sending notices to the respondent against whom the complaint is being raised, and to give the statement of witnesses and recording statements of complainant and respondent, then witnesses, then looking into all the evidences which both the parties produce. It can be WhatsApp chats, electronic evidences, it can be documents, anything that can be produced before the committee. And then once everything is over, the committee starts processing with writing the report, and the committee writes a report, and this report goes with a recommendation to the employer for taking action. And then the employer takes action against the employee. And then chain goes back. They have to write to the SheBox telling action taken, recommendation submitted. So each progress is being reported to SheBox. So when a complaint is registered, till it closes, SheBox monitors that particular bar, and then complaint closed. It goes till there. Now, the other important clarification is, say the employer needs to take action on the recommendations of the internal committee. But however, the employer cannot change the recommendations of the committee. That's important to be. Now, what are the challenges in implementing SheBox? Is basically many of us do not know. So it's lack of awareness on the existence of she-box. When we tell lack of awareness, when we tell she-box, many of them think it is only for females. It is only for women. There are also complaints which are registered by men in she-box, which are also accepted. And then registration complexity, because they are evolving. Every time there are new patterns, like from 19, there was new pattern in 23, then 21, then subsequently 23, now 26. It's completely an AI tool. So the registration complexities are there, but it's not very difficult to register. But still, if you do not know how to online log in and register, it is definitely a challenge. And then again, unorganized sector implementation is still a great challenge, because many of them do not have the access to many of them have good phones, modern phones, but still many of them lack having those facilities. So registering a complaint becomes difficult. And then delayed inquiries. Sometimes the organization, once the she-box progresses the complaint, and when they direct it to the organization does not give progress reports to she-box. So due to this, they will tell investigation is on, investigation is on, investigation is on. So that investigation is on, cannot go beyond 90 days. But there are many instances where it also goes beyond 90 days, and then the delay happens, then reporting to she-box. Then when she-box monitor how many complaints have been registered and which all are still not submitted the report even after 90 days. So follow-up challenges happens. That is still there. They are also working towards that. And then poorly functioning internal committees, because one important aspect is the local committees. In many organizations, internal committees have not been constituted. So once internal committees are not constituted, the complaints are directed to local committees. But even in local committees, there are no members who are qualified and trained to look into sexual harassment complaints. And secondly, members are not available, and the local committees are also not functioning effectively. So this is major setback in implementation challenges and misconception of the portal's power. See, many of them think the minute I submit a report, it is a court or a judge. No, she-box only acts as a post box. Basically, a complaint goes to she-box, it is directed to someone else to look into it. So it is not a court nor a judge. So please take away that misunderstanding. Now, what are the advantages of she-boxes? It's shifting workspace safety from private company institution to government monitoring. See, normally, when you tell compliance, in case if you do not submit your POSH report, that is your internal committee report every year, annual report, then your licenses can be cancelled. There you should pay penalty. And when someone is sitting on your head, then the implementation becomes more effective. So if this private companies who are having IC and not working, then if any complaint is registered, when government is monitoring them, their accountability and responsibility increases. So that's the first important advantage. The second one is they cannot shy away from the role. Many times they tell, we do not have an internal committee, we will refer your complaint to HR. The HR does not even take these complaints seriously, because already their burden might be, but they think that it is not at all a serious concern. They will, as I told you, they will only shift from one branch to other branch, or they will shift one manager to another manager, but they will not address the root cause. Many times it gets suppressed. So that particular thing cannot happen if you give a complaint to she-box. And then it increases reporting. Any person without fearing of being judged, without fear of any stigmatization of themselves, can report to she-box. And then it completely, it's very quick. They will monitor regularly, and the progress is very perfectly on timelines they're addressing now. And then it eradicates corporate blind spots, which basically they don't tell that my company is zero tolerance, so we do not have any complaint. They don't do that. They really check, and they are monitoring the progress. And then other important aspect is, many of them tell, I don't understand the language which IC speaks. or the language, the language which we speak. So in SheBox, there are 22 languages which has been there. So according to each person's comfortable language, it is very easy to go and register a complaint. Or even if you ask that I want my language person to whom I need to talk, they are also addressing that issues as well. And then shifting companies' culture from reactive to preventive. So because of this, the mandate is every organization needs to give training to its employees that there is an act, there is a policy, there is an internal committee, and they will act upon any form of sexual harassment very seriously. So that is very important. So that is not after, before itself, the company needs to be proactive in preventing any form of sexual harassment. And then it makes the employer more accountable, and it also promotes awareness. Now, what are the recommendations for strengthening this is they need to decentralize it further, and then uniform national register is existing. The numbers which they give for each complaint, but it has not reached the grassroots level. So that we should also be reaching the grassroots levels. Then annual POSH trainings. Annual POSH trainings are conducted in each organization annually. One, you can call any expert to give training on sexual harassment. In case if you do not know any experts or anyone, you can give your queries, your need for expertise to SheBox. SheBox will recommend you with trained person on POSH training. So that is also possible. And it has 22 languages, as I told you, to register your complaint or to hear you out. 22 languages are already existing. And so you need not fear of lack of communication or lack of how do I tell things in my own way. That need not be a concern. It is existing. And then regular audits happen. And then it's a time-bound inquiry and independent oversight. So the management or the company or the HR cannot monitor any progress. It is because it is an independent oversight. In a SheBox, we will not even know who is monitoring the complaint, who is checking the progress of the complaint. We will not even know. So an independent body is sitting and monitoring. If you do not act, they will question you. So it makes you more accountable. So that's the progress. And these things, all these are already, implementation is started. It should be a little more effective in nature. And then the future vision. As I told you, in 2026, the SheBox has been modernized and they are working towards new tools. So they are also taking AI assistance. And then the language, they are trying to introduce more languages apart from 22 languages. And then the real-time tracking, sometimes it lacks. As I told, the company does not get back to the SheBox, they tell they are in the investigating phase. Inquiry is on and on and on. So in these time, that 90 days is not kept intact. So how do you tackle that? That is one thing which they are trying to address. And then legal aid integration. So all the acts which is covered for protection of women from any form of sexual harassment at workplace, they're integrating that particular vision, maybe POSH or any criminal action. Civil and criminal action also gets integrated where they can help any victim from protection. So that's the vision of SheBox as well. And then the stakeholders map is basically how it works is employee raises the complaint, employer, then government, then internal committee and local committee. So the employee, employer, they raise a complaint to SheBox, that is government. Government in turn the SheBox refer it back to the internal committee or the local committee, and then the process starts. Then wheel of preventing, the important action, the title of your act itself is protection prevention. So towards prevention, they tell conduct awareness regularly, reporting mechanisms should be very clear, investigation should happen transparently, and then compliance. And you, this particular one complaint also, don't think it as not a complaint, because a complaint many times happen that it is case to case basis. What makes me feel uncomfortable will not make the other person uncomfortable. So we cannot generalize the complaint in this particular context. Take every complaint seriously. is according to its case-to-case basis, independent case-to-case basis, and provide a safe workplace. So this is the wheel of protection which every organization needs to follow. And then the impact pyramid, it tells us it's an easy access, and then it increases the reporting mechanism, it takes timely action, then it increases accountability, and finally the target is to give every employee of the organization a safe workplace to work. So that's the final target which we do. And then this particular chart, the she box, also helps the person for safe workplace and safe environment to work. And then what is safe framework is safe. Any person who is subjected to sexual harassment need to speak up. It is to increase the accountability of the organization and to conduct fair inquiry, and by this to empower any women to work and to be independent by themselves. And then here I just move on to give you certain case study scenario. See, many times we do not understand what is sexual harassment. The 5 definitions which I told you about: physical touch, physical contact, verbal in nature, quid pro quo, pornography, gesturely movements. Many times these are misunderstood and they tell, I only joked with you. So in that context, I just wanted to give you few case studies. See, the first one case study is, it's just a joke. See, many of the people, they tell that this is just a scenario which you can read. So how does this happen? When some complaints are raised, the immediate reaction is, it is a joke. So there's nothing called joke by affecting others' safety, integrity, and taking away the emotions. There's nothing called joke. So that is important. And then now, because we have so much vast social medias and online chats, we have WhatsApp chats and various form of chats. We have Snapchat. They will send you image, and the minute you click on image, you see it, it disappears. So you do not even have a proof to tell that this person sent me a very bad image or something which I want to report. I don't have an evidence to show, because the minute you click that, it goes off. And then many of them create deep fakes and so many things and keep forwarding in WhatsApp and things. And they tell, it is just a joke for you, I sent. It is, so that is, in this particular concept, it is not a joke, anything with regard to sexual harassment. So that's the first scenario. The second one is about unorganized sectors. So as I told, many unorganized sectors still do not have an internal committee. They do not know how to go report. They do not know there is an Act of POSH Act itself. They do not know that. Then only they will know how to report and things. So in that particular case, what can they do? So here there's a scenario of a domestic helper facing inappropriate advances in an apartment building supervisor. So there is no HR department or there is no boss to complain. What she can do is basically spread awareness so that she can go and give a complaint to SheBox. And then this particular SheBox will forward this complaint to the local committee, and the local committee will look into it with due seriousness. So you need not worry that there is no internal committee for unorganized sector, so for anyone. So even if there is no internal committee, there is the local committee which will work. Then the third one is, see, normally there is one say that if the victim should be subjected to sexual harassment. Otherwise, you cannot complain. But in certain instances, always the victim need not complain. Even the person who is seeing that X is harassing Y every time, then the person who's seeing that can also raise a complaint. Yes, they can raise a complaint before internal committee, or they can raise a complaint before SheBox also. They can directly write to SheBox telling that this is, I'm a witness and this is the victim who is subjected to harassment. That is also permitted in SheBox. Then the next one is remote working and digital harassments. This is very common nowadays because many of us work from home and many of us work remotely. We do not go to office. So what happens in those scenarios is when someone is harassing you digitally, then that also can be raised. Yes, it can be raised to, all these complaints can be raised to your own internal committee or to SheBox parallelly also. And this virtual harassments and digital harassment can also be recorded with evidences. You can submit it to the SheBox and SheBox will take immediate action on that. And then third party clients environment. This is basically when I go somewhere on site. If both companies, now I am belonging to X company and I'm going out for a meeting or vendor related to Y company. I have a sexual harassment policy, but Y company do not have a sexual harassment policy or do not have an internal committee. So what happens in that scenario is, in that particular complaint, this X company and the employee who is subject to harassment can write to the SheBox directly telling, during my client interface or during my meetings, I was harassed. That complaint can also go to SheBox. So it is not only within your organization, it can also extend beyond. And as I told you, please remember the definition of workspace. Anywhere where I go to work, it's a duty of the employer to protect me. So even if that particular organization do not have an internal committee, it's a duty of my employer to protect me. So they will help you to register a complaint before SheBox. Then SheBox will direct to, if they do not have an internal committee, to the local committee and take action. Then the next one is extended timeline dilemma. See, normally many times, as I told, every complaint needs to be addressed within 90 days from the date of receipt of complaint. And then after sending recommendations, the management can another take 60 days to finalize the report and take action on the employee on whom the complaint was given. In case if it is going beyond this 3 months, in spite of giving a complaint, if the internal committee is not acting, then you can go and even register a complaint before SheBox. One, you can register your own sexual harassment complaint. Second, you can also complain about your internal committee, telling that I have given my complaint, they are not acting on my complaint. So that is also, then it's like monitoring mechanism. The government will monitor on your complaint directly with the committee of your organization for progress. So that is also there in this. So the next case study is basically on quid pro quo track. This is basically when someone is superior in nature, when someone is harassing you, when we do not know, see, I am reporting to them, I'm accountable to them, I'm working under them, and they are harassing me, then confidentially, you can give a registered complaint before SheBox. I've just given certain scenarios, and you can directly register, because I should, if I go and complain, I have to only complain to that person who is harassing me. So then will the person take it seriously? Though I've resisted telling no and things, the person is continuing their harassment. So when I'm facing such harassment, when I go and give a complaint to that particular person, how will they act upon? They will not act upon. So they tell, when there is even quid pro quo, you can also give complaints to SheBox. So this is the attendee. Now, the most important aspect is the, as I told you, the POSH policy and the Sexual Harassment Act is civil in nature. So the punishments which they can give is also in the similar lines. One, they can give recommend to the management that to immediately reprimand a person, to transfer the direct reporting, to transfer from one branch to another, to terminate the person with immediate effect without giving any notice period, and then to take away the reduce the promotion, salary hikes. So these are some recommendations which the committee can give, and then the employer organization acts upon that particular recommendations and the functioning on the complaints recommendation. Their next important aspect is there are also a lot of false complaints which are recorded in SheBox as well as before the IT. Then, but when a complaint comes, it's very difficult to tell whether it's a genuine complaint or a false complaint. Only after investigation is completed, we know it's a genuine complaint or false complaint. So if it's a false complaint, the same recommendations can be given on the person who is given the false complaint. It's equally accountable to them as well. So these are the actions, what the act is telling, and now it has been monitored by the government through a tool called a SheBox. So SheBox, many of them do not know. So we need to create awareness on this, because if it is properly implemented, definitely it will be a successful tool for protection of women from any form of sexual harassment. And the concluding remark is, SheBox transforms the right to dignity into accessible right. And where can you find more details on SheBox? I have given the website shebox.wcd.government.in. If you go there, it gives you the entire aspect of what is SheBox and who can register, who should not. There's no should not. Who all can register? What are the documents which you need to keep before registering? And after registering, what is the identity login details which you will get? And how do you progress and track your case? So all these materials are available with Ministry of Women and Child, Government of India website. So it can be viewed there as well. So I hope it was a very brief session. I hope the topic is being covered, and awareness on the small topic of SheBox will help you all to, one, if any one of us is subject to harassment, we can also raise complaint, or to also spread awareness, telling that there is a portal like this, why don't you raise awareness, so that no one should be subjected to sexual harassment, and we have a safe and dignified workspace for everyone to work with dignity. With this, I stop. Sir?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, could you just remove the screen? This PDF, this PPT. Yeah. So as usual, the session was quite good. There are few questions, though you have taken it up, but like we always take the last questions, which are repetitive. Like, how do you explain what is a SheBox?
SheBox is an online portal. SheBox is nothing but it acts as a post office. See, once a complaint is registered before SheBox, the SheBox transfers the complaint to the internal committee, which means every organization should be registered with SheBox. So they will send it to the internal committee. In case if there is no internal committee which is registered with SheBox, they will send it to your district local office to look into this particular complaint of sexual harassment. So the SheBox is a tool which will help you to address these issues in a confidential manner.
Why was the concept of SheBox portal introduced?
The SheBox portal was introduced. One, it is many organizations suppress these informations because many of them do not, we cannot tell lack of awareness, but from 2013 we have the legislation, but many of them do not like to report telling that my company had one complaint, two complaints in their reports. So they suppress any form of complaint, or they try to put any form of sexual harassment complaints combining with HR related complaints, and then they do not act with due seriousness. So what happens, because of which the victim does not get justice? So they tell, rather than that, you come to SheBox, then the internal committee is bound to act upon your complaint. They cannot suppress your complaint. That's the important. I just give an example. Of late, many of you would have heard about Tata company, how many complaints of sexual harassment was raised over the years, but the employee and the IC, though IC was existing, did not take any action. So in those instances, if they were aware of SheBox, if they would have registered a complaint before SheBox, then rather than so many women getting harassed, they could have tackled that much more effectively. So in those instances, SheBox really helps.
How has SheBox strengthened the implementation of the POSH Act?
SheBox, now your POSH Act, your Sexual Harassment Act, is also amended, and through government amendments, notifications also passed to introduce SheBox, and that is why it is legally enforceable. And the They have also used it as part of a scheme, Ministry of Women, through a scheme, they are introducing this particular concept of she-box.
Yeah.
It is not an alternative, it is an along with.
Supplementing.
In association with.
You can say it is supplementing.
Yes.
Yeah. Then else. What is the evidentiary standard in proceedings before the internal committee?
The evidentiary value is basically the internal committee, how it's constituted is the internal committee has 50% should be women employees. One is a chairperson who is part of the company. There are few members based on the number of size of your employees, and then definitely an external member of your committee. External member should be someone from non-government organization or a person who is aware of tackling such complaints of sexual harassment. Now, what happens in case if your internal committee, that company's organization do not have an internal committee, then if you refer a matter to she-box, they will recommend an internal committee for us, and they will give us an external resource person who is qualified for looking into the complaints. So that's what they associate, and they provide assistance. Apart from that, they're also every organization to give training to its employees. So even for giving training, if you do not know, you can also register for resource person support in she-box. They will provide you that.
So thank you, ma'am, for sharing the knowledge.